Welcome back. Well, we have been talking about how the US Senate has approved the Biosecure Act as a bipartisan measure to be included in the National Defense Authorization Act. Siva, Chittor, the CFO at Sai Life Sciences, is joining us now, and Ekta is also here to take us through that conversation. Mr. Chittor, welcome to the show. Can you first explain what the impact of this would be? And Ekta will, of course, be the one who will be taking this conversation forward. Ekta.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Chittor, for joining in. I just wanted to actually take you through what exactly has taken place. And I'm reading out of a Macquarie note where they say that the new Biosecure Act, which has been passed, is probably going to be a watered-down version as compared to what was earlier expected. So unlike the previous version, which named specific companies, the current version defines BCCs, which is basically Biotechnology Company of Concern, as those listed on the U.S. Department of Defense's annual list of Chinese military companies. So does that change the meaning significantly more?
No, I don't believe so. While we still haven't gone through this in full detail, I think the earlier Biosecure Act had named specific companies within the hard-coded version of the Act, which I believe would create problems if you want to add or delete companies. At least that was one of the reports that had been cited by some of the US journalist sources as the reason for making modifications. We still have to go through this, but I think from a fundamental business perspective, this just tells organizations that there is a concern with respect to outsourcing. And, this will then increase or the speed at which companies will look at India as a destination. That's really what we believe.
Okay. So how much of a benefit do you think that the Biosecure Act now being passed is to Indian CDMOs? Because they had lost a little bit of momentum when, there was some uncertainty on whether or not it would be passed. But now that it is, even though it might be a watered-down version, what's the incremental business that you expect CDMOs to see?
In my understanding, I think our overall share of the Asian CRDMO outsourcing, I think, is probably very less. It's negligible if you compare what China does versus India. And for anybody to say I have a reasonable spread in terms of geography, a 20-25% is a minimum that people would at least look for, even if it's not 50-50 to start with. In our opinion, India probably does only 5% if I compare the Asian outsourcing on small molecules. That could mean that India could look at an expansion of 4 to 5x. This is not going to happen like immediately. Pharma will start so because India also has to put up capacity, add capability in people. But I think we've done this many times. We've done this in the tech industry. We've done it in the generic industry in the pharma sector. So I think once there is an ability for us to move up and do better, I think India is very well poised to capture on this trend.
So you think majority of the business or opportunities probably going to come in the small molecule space and not maybe the larger molecule biotech space?
No, it will come in both, but I think India is today much more dominant on the small molecule space than what it is on the large molecule space. Most of the people, including Sai, are putting up additional facilities, capacities, and capability on the large molecule space. But I think we have a much more mature ecosystem on the small molecule side.
Okay. CDMO companies have said it multiple times that they're already seeing a lot of benefit coming in from the US Biosecure Act, and that's probably been happening for the past fiscal odd, if not more. So there have been incremental amount of inquiries. So give us a sense in terms of the kind of inquiries or the amount the inquiries have risen for business and how much of that has converted into final contracts.
So I think, so I'll talk about most conversations, which is much more strategic in nature. What we've seen companies that have not come to India for commercial or late phase molecules on the small molecule side. And we have seen them come back and start talking to companies in India, specifically us. And I know that for a fact, these are companies who've never worked with others in India or even with us prior on commercial side. We've seen companies who had policies of not working in India on new entities, new chemical entities, but we are seeing them move to India. So the conversations that we are seeing today are much more strategic in terms of how people are looking at India. It's not about a pair of hands and I will give you something that I don't want to outsource to China just to show a smaller diversification, but it's much more strategic in nature in terms of conversations, in terms of molecules, in terms of work that they want to do, in terms of how they would want to build India. India needs to, we in the industry needs to take some amount of learning, some amount of capacity building to get there. But I think we are seeing signs of pharma treating us as much more strategic partners.
Okay. You spoke about scale. Is India ready to take on the opportunity? Because the difference that a lot of the companies do, point out between, say, Chinese infrastructure and Indian infrastructure is that they have the infrastructure ready. You just need to come and start your work. Are we in that position as yet to be able to service the kind of demand that we might be seeing?
We do not, to be very honest with you, but I'm seeing that all of the companies, if you look at the CDMO space, have all announced CapEx, have all talked about expansion within their own space, within their own customers. And that's really what needs to happen for pharma to come in more and kind of outsource work to India. And India has done this scale up successfully the generic side, 20 years, 25 years ago, where we were in terms of scale to where we are in scale, we've not shied away from adding scale where there is a need, demand, and willingness from the other side to kind of help us grow.
Okay. So if we were to have this conversation, maybe a year from now, how much do you think business could have incrementally increased for the CDMO space?
Kind of difficult to say in a year's time, Ekta. I think pharma takes a little bit of time to kind of pick partners before they would kind of go and decide on one or two of their partners in India. I believe that process will happen in 12, 18 months. That's really how we are seeing pharma talking to all of us in India. And I think that will then the next 3 years probably will kind of tell you how fast these companies can go. But I'm just saying this, the scale of the opportunity could be as good as 4-5x for the entire country as a whole.
Okay, all right, Mr. Chittor, we're going to let you go on that note. Thanks very much for joining in and speaking with us.
Absolutely an important one there, Ekta. Interesting to watch out for the CDMO space now after this recent update that has come in. But with that, we're going to wind down this edition of Halftime Report. Thank you so much for tuning in. Up next, your Business Lunch.